Hello, everyone. Welcome to Urban U. I'm Abby Ashola. On this episode, our own CUNY researchers share news of their findings that ripple through the world of science and the mainstream media. We'll zoom out of space and into the nation's history lessons, and we'll talk racism in the world of music theory. Those stories and more. But first, a century ago, the United States was recovering from the last great pandemic, the Spanish flu. And much like today, a major conversation was being had about how to bolster the nation's economy. But what spurred that need was quite different from what we see today. And it also led to the creation of our own Baruch College.
While New York City, and the country, and the entire world for that matter, would be hit hard by the ravages of the Spanish flu, it wouldn't be the virus that would primarily spur economic change here. Back then, that was more due to World War I. You see, for much of America's history at the time, the country had been largely an agrarian society. Only in the later 1800s would America begin to emerge as an industrial titan. And for most jobs, a grammar school education was enough. For anything higher, an apprenticeship. College at the time, therefore, was less a place for utilitarian business. Held in higher esteem were pursuits like the arts, humanities, and sciences. Case in point, City College had actually tried offering some commercial classes as far back as the 1870s, but the program was very unpopular with the professors and the trustees, and ultimately, the school abandoned it. But by the late 1800s, business was expanding, and by the early 1900s, the industrial needs of the world, and soon the world at war, had thrust the American economy onto the international stage more than ever before. And new industry meant more jobs. That needed more specialized training than an apprenticeship, and specialized training meant more business education. By the early 1900s, City College had outgrown its original building on 23rd and Lexington and moved into the Uptown campus we know today. And they had started offering some business courses in the evening. And this time, they were successful. By 1917, enough so to warrant their own space. Where? Back downtown, at the vacated 23rd and Lexington building. And by 1919, despite a pandemic and a post-war recovery, these City College classes downtown had proven so popular to the point that it was decided to spin off this business program into its own college. The School of Business and Civic Administration was born. The post-World War I and post-influenza years that this new college was born into would see an economic boom in America. In fact, between 1919 and 1924, 117 collegiate business schools appeared. Riding the high of these boom years, funds were available to completely rebuild the old building at 23rd and Lex for the business school, opening in September 1929, just a month before the Roaring Twenties came to a halt in October's stock market crash. But the school would grow, and as of 1953, this School of Business and Civic Administration would be renamed Baruch College, for financier, philanthropist, presidential advisor, and City College alum Bernard M. Baruch, operating out of that same building, still in use today. For the record, I'm Ari Goldberg.
We'll be right back after this message from Baruch College.
3, 2, 1.
Standing high above the city's mighty roar, Bernard Baruch, we sing to you now and evermore.
very exciting news in the field of astronomy, news that made waves in the mainstream media, who called it a tremendous advance for science and the beginning of a new era of astronomy. At the center of it all, our own CUNY researchers, Doctors Savik Ford and Barry McKernan, here with us today for a conversation on their findings about the ever fascinating black holes. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonora.
Savik, before we bring more detail into the picture, why is this finding important to the scientific community and to each of us Earthlings?
So it's really exciting because we think that this is the first time that we may have detected light that you could see with your eyes coming from a black hole merger. And so everybody knows that black holes don't emit any light, but if you embed them in gas, which does emit light, then you can get a light-based signal for some events that might happen between black holes. And so we're very excited because we know that there was a merger of two black holes because we detected it in gravitational waves, which is like hearing it, but we weren't able to see it. And now we think that we have an event where we have done both, heard it and seen it. And if this is correct, we'll be able to use it to probe the expansion of the universe and understand more about galaxies and how our universe got to be the way that it is today.
Barry, we met just recently at the American Museum of Natural History, where you're both researchers with the astrophysics department. Take us through the chain of discoveries from that moment on. It seems like it all escalated into more and more findings on your end.
We basically have been working on this idea, black hole mergers in these gas disks that Savik was talking about, for probably the last 10 years. And just in the last 5 years or so, LIGO has discovered gravitational waves. And just in the last 2 years, LIGO started seeing more and more black hole mergers. And so what really happened in just the last 6 months to year is that people have been paying attention to this particular model that we've been working on and have started looking for the signatures you might expect. And we were all shocked. We didn't think that we would see something first time around, but our friend and colleague, Matthew Graham, who led this work, found this really weird event that seemed to match what one of the black hole mergers that LIGO saw. And so we were shocked and tried to figure out what we could from what we saw.
Well, we'll have to end our conversation here. And if I may, with your own words, Barry, quoted by the New York Times, our picture of the universe just became more sophisticated, complicated, but also beautiful. Thank you both for shedding light on the universe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leonora.
On this next story, Donna Hanover talks to Macaulay Honors College professor about his book on President Abraham Lincoln's dangerous trip to take the oath of office as the Civil War was beginning.
In 1861, President-elect Abraham Lincoln rode more than 15 steam-powered trains like this to get from Illinois to his inauguration in Washington, D.C. In Lincoln on the Verge, Ted Widmer, a professor at Macaulay Honors College and former speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, says Lincoln's 13-day trip was remarkable.
Goes through northern state capitals in this very winding way, but he's also figuring out the words he needs to unite Americans at an extremely disunited time in our history. And he's getting stronger by the day, but as he gets closer to Washington, it's getting more dangerous for him. He's elected on November 6, 1860, and right away the South starts declaring that they will secede. By the time he gets to Washington, 7 states have seceded.
But on the trip, Lincoln forged a bond with the crowds who came to see him along the way in big cities and tiny towns.
A lot of it was just the thrill of seeing him, and there was something about the way he looked. He looked more authentic than most politicians. It was not just his great height, but he had these rough-hewn features and he looked like a man of the people. And I argue that just the act of seeing this different-looking guy helped build support among the American people when he really needed it. He'd only won the presidency with 39% of the vote, so he needed to build up his support. Lincoln probably would not have made it without the actions of two very forceful women, very courageous women. And one is Dorothea Dix. She's a mental health advocate who is well known around the country, and she's coming through the South in the fall of 1860. And she hears somewhere that there's a very well-developed plot forming to kill him as he comes through Baltimore. And she takes it on herself to go to Philadelphia and tell the president of the railroad. And then the president of that railroad hired Alan Pinkerton, a detective in Chicago, and he brought 8 operatives with him. And among them was an amazingly talented young woman named Kate Warney, who infiltrated the plotters and their circle, their female friends, but also the plotters themselves. And she got a lot of information out of them. And Pinkerton sent her to warn Lincoln and his entourage of the danger that they were facing in Baltimore.
So after a stop in Harrisburg, instead of going straight to Baltimore, Lincoln and a small group backtracked to Philadelphia on a tiny train in the dead of night. Once there, he was able to get on a different train than expected into Baltimore. Telegraph lines were cut in order to keep his movement secret. According to the book, once he arrived in Baltimore, the transfer to the final D.C.-bound train was a nail-biter.
When you come in from the north, you would get off at one station and ride in a horse and carriage to the other station. They were going to surround him. They had a variety of weapons, including guns, knives, and explosive devices. And there were, hundreds of people were going to try to get him with all of those. And if Lincoln hadn't gone through in the middle of the night and foiled their plans, there's no telling what would have happened.
Pinkerton also had men stationed at the final bridges out of Maryland to prevent an explosion or ambush. Lincoln safely arrived in Washington on February 23rd for his inauguration on March 4th. Did Widmer's 4 years as a speechwriter for President Bill Clinton help him learn about Lincoln?
I only got into the Lincoln bedroom once. There was a tour for employees, and I got in there, and I would go to the Lincoln Memorial and be inspired by the statue and the words. And it made me want to step up my game and write the best possible speeches I could.
We're going into a presidential election, and we are terribly divided. Is there something we can learn from this great president?
He was a unifier, not a divider. I think we have underestimated his skill, his political skill in actually getting rid of slavery, because it was very hard to do in a conservative country. And the North was conservative too. And he got the Emancipation Proclamation through a country that didn't really want it. He wants to believe in a country that stands for equality. That would be a nice thing to see in the 2020 election too. I'm not too optimistic we will see our president do this, but I'm hoping others will, including voters themselves, saying we have a chance to show that democracy works.
I'm Donna Hanover for Urban U.
One Hunter College professor is asserting that, quote, music theory is so white, unquote. And to support his claims, he's citing the stats that show an overwhelming number of white people dominate the profession. I spoke to him about his claims and how they've caused an uproar in the world of music theory.
Like so many academic fields in the United States, music theory is overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly male. My name is Philip Ewell. I am a music theory professor, associate professor of music theory at Hunter College.
Within the past couple of years, Professor Ewell has created somewhat of a stir in the world of music theory when he began publishing essays and giving talks to call out his field's racist past and present.
Can you give us a snapshot about how deep the problem is?
So I, for instance, The last time I checked, I am the only associate professor in the field of, in the Society of Music Theory, which is about 1,200 members. So I guess that's less than 0.1%.
According to SMT, roughly 84% of the Society's membership, 90% of full-time employees, and 94% of associate and full professors are white.
It's very difficult sometimes for very well-intentioned people to understand how race plays out and some of the themes that continue to play out with respect to race and whiteness in the field of music theory.
So I have to ask you, what exactly is music theory?
The simple answer is music theory is the study of music and kind of notes on the page, along with key signatures like C major, D minor, and pieces of music written for piano or for string quartet or for symphony orchestra. But just one layer deeper than that is actually the problem. The only people who have been allowed to define what music theory is in the United States have been both white and male. So music theory is of course, in another definition, something quite a bit more than just looking at Beethoven and Mozart, for example, because those are the composers that we're told we have to look at in music. Bach, Beethoven, Brahms.
Ewell also spoke out about the racist legacy of Heinrich Schenker, a late 19th and early 20th century theorist who was lauded as an instrumental figure in the field. Many praised Ewell for speaking out, while some denounced his assessment.
Well, this person is a very problematic figure for many reasons. He was a German nationalist, and he wrote and said many horrible things about many people. He believed in hierarchies of peoples and races, wrote very explicitly about that. But what I have emphasized in my work is not really so much about Heinrich Schenker. And that's really part of the problem, because the only defense that people make of Heinrich Schenker is, well, that was a different time. We don't really need to think about that, right? The past is the past, which is a very common theme, because that's what people have done in the United States when it comes to our racist, and I think the key term here is white supremacist past. And I'm simply pointing out, let's not erase it anymore. Let's talk about it. Our students deserve to know the truth.
Ewell himself was a student of classical music early on as a cello player. His father, who became a math professor after graduating from Morehouse College alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1948, was a lover of classical music. And so, he supported his son's decision to pursue music as a profession. Ewell went on to spend 7 years in Russia studying Russian classical music. At this stage in his career, he's taken on so much more.
So what are some of the ways you feel change can happen?
So I have a new mantra that I've said in an interview, and I think it made it onto Twitter, but I'll tell you it here now. The mantra is, there can be no anti-racist action in the future without acknowledgement of and reconciliation for racist actions in the past. We acknowledge that white supremacy happened and is happening before our very eyes in 2020, very sadly. And without that acknowledgement, a discussion about what we can do in an anti-racist fashion, frankly, is meaningless.
Is this our hashtag music theory so white moment? I certainly hope so.
Janice Mailman is a prominent New York photographer, and she's been teaching at Kingsborough Community College since 1987. We were lucky enough to get a tour of her studio in Italy and get immersed in her artwork and her words.
My husband and I had been coming to this town in Pietrasanta for summers since 1979, and this is really an artist town, a lot of sculptors. I started photographing Italian architecture in my work, and he started making sculpture in marble, so we found every excuse to come back. Hello, my name's Janice Mailman, and I'd like to invite you in to see my studio and talk to you a little bit about my work. So follow me into my studio. For many years, I photographed architecture in a very abstract way. I was working in a darkroom. I'm a master printer in black and white. And as my work has been developing, they're becoming very colorful. My work takes ordinary, everyday objects and creates abstraction from ordinary things. Well, the last 3 months we were in New York and we were closed up with the pandemic, and I wanted to create a body of work that emotionally expressed how I felt about the moment. This photograph is called Contagion, and if you look at this photograph, you see that these pieces lead into these pieces and they kind of move into each other, and then they end on top where you come into the red. And I started to photograph Corona beer bottles, just something with the title Corona, and it's almost like an explosion, and things are completely out of control and just going everywhere. And so this was also a reaction to the moment that we're living in right now. Recently, this book called A World History of Photography by Naomi Rosenblum included one of my photographs, full page. So this photograph was my scarves, and I was just sort of tossing them around in composition with light and shadow, and it's called Veiled Emotions. I always thought of myself as a photographer, never as a woman photographer. And I said, I'm going to consciously make things that are coming from a woman, looking inward. So if you look at this, it's very abstract and it's very colorful, but it's actually one of my bras that's in the photograph in a very abstract way. It feels very Spanish to me. And then more recently, I have some of these which are very sensuous. And what it really is in reality, it's 2 silver-colored boots lined up, and I'm looking through them, and beyond is the price tag. It's a religious experience to take a photograph when you know everything is perfect and you know that you created something that really will be magical. When I'm not in Italy and I'm teaching and I'm at Kingsborough, I live in Brooklyn. I've been teaching mostly traditional photography, black and white with film in a darkroom for the last 30 years. And I always feel like you need to learn to walk before you learn to run. However, this semester, we did everything online, and it was a big challenge for me. In a week, I had to figure the whole thing out. And in the end, it was amazing. And my students made the most amazing photographs over the course of that 12-week period that we were in lockup. So I have had great satisfaction teaching at Kingsborough. I'm a product of CUNY. I was a Brooklyn College student. I studied with some amazing people. I studied with greats, with Walter Rosenblum and Barney Cole and Georgine Comerford. And they gave me the tools and basically were my mentors and said, you are a photographer, you must do this. And so if I could do that to a few students at Kingsborough, I can't think of anything better.
That's our show for this month. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll leave you with a selection of photographs done by the students of artist Janice Mailman. Don't forget to check us out on social media and share our stories. Bye.
And we'll see the sun come up, and the evil that arises we just overcome. None of us has much, but we all have enough. We are made rich by the one that's our love. Smashed on my face, that's lame, made mosaics. Dance with my demons in the moonlit mayhem. Reassured them that now I'm forsaken, cause there is no shortage of grace. Yeah, open my doors and I let all the strays in. Threw my phone away, but friend of strangers. Found out that they weren't that dangerous, and that we are heads, so we exchanged. Then wicked winds blew, we made a fight with the vapor. We have some strange reason of it chasing. We did not lament the time that we had wasted, but rejoiced at where we found ourselves today. Yeah, dance and we'll sing till the sun come up, and the evil that arises we just overcome. None of us has much, but we all have enough. We are made rich by the one that's our love. So come and dance with us, take a chance with us. If you don't have a home, you make it with us. creatures that walked naked and eating, unashamed, full of freedom until they're loud. Fear to disease, and those who carry the curses on my people. Learn to dance, learn to pain, learn to scratch a needle, learn to be courageous regardless of our wrinkles. Learn to love in the face of evil, learn to be peaceful.